Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the Folklore Book Tag. I haven't been tagged in this, but I saw Hilary from Melted Books do this tag. It looks really fun. I love the questions. I thought I would give it a go. It was originally created by Enchanted Reader, who I will link in the description along with Hilary's version. And yeah, I just thought it would be a kind of cozy, fun tag to do today. So one thing you guys probably don't know about me is I'm a massive Swiftie. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. And it's one of those things I don't really talk about very much because especially since I joined Booktube, I don't actually listen to that much music because if I'm like out and about, I tend to have an audiobook on these days. However, I do have a deep love for Taylor Swift. I didn't enjoy her previous album. I can't even remember what it was called because it just wasn't really my kind of music. But when Folklore dropped and I saw everybody's excitement, I listened to a couple of the tracks on YouTube and really loved it, and it feels like old school Taylor Swift. Sorry, that's my computer making a noise. That's really ideal. Yeah, it felt like old school Taylor Swift, like the kind of Taylor Swift that I have a deep love for. So I bought the album and I love it, and I thought I'd do this tag. It's quite long because there's 16 tracks, so there's one prompt for each track. As usual, when I do a tag, I've got the questions up on my screen just here, so that's what I'm looking at. Let's do it. So question one. A couple that you don't agree with. I kind of struggled with this because I don't really, as usual I'm leaning to get my book, I don't really read a lot of books with couples in, but one that I read that I felt like didn't really need a romance was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is following a teenage mum who loves to cook, and she's basically trying to balance motherhood with studying and looking after her family and just, you know, general life stuff, friendships. She's not very confident even though she's clearly an amazing cook and all that good stuff. And it's very much coming of age, and obviously there is a boy involved. And I thought their relationship was sweet and I did like the way it was dealt with. I just wasn't sure it was needed. So yeah, that's the only book that sprang to mind when I saw this prompt, and I would always take a chance to show off this absolutely stunning cover. Question two, Cardigan, a book that you loved but the ending disappointed you. Unfortunately, The Sin Eater by Megan Campisi. I loved this edition. This copy was gifted to me by Book Break, and again the cover is just gorgeous. I am going to do a cover video soon, I promise I am. This I really enjoyed. It's a debut novel. I will definitely look for more when this author brings out other books. It's basically set in a kind of, my computer's making more noises. Let's just put that on mute like a professional booktuber would. Yeah, this is set in I guess it's a dystopian or alternative history where women can be forced to become sin eaters if they commit a crime. A sin eater is somebody who visits a dying person. That dying person admits all of their sins. Certain foods are connected to certain sins, and then the sin eater has to eat those foods once that person dies so that they can cross over into the next life with their sins absolved, and the sin eater is then forced to carry the sins of that person. I thought this was really clever. It was really well done. It was beautifully written. I just really didn't like the end. The pace of the book was quite slow all the way through, and then suddenly at the end it like fast forwarded and it just left me feeling a little bit unsatisfied, but I still gave it 4 stars and I've still kept it, and it's still a glorious book and I will look for more from the author, but the end of this was just a little bit disappointing. Question 3, The Great American Dynasty, a villain that you can't help but love. Is there any other choice apart from Rhiannon from Sweet Pea by CJ Scouse? I've just completed a reread of the second book in the series, In Bloom, and the third book is coming out in February next year, which I'm so excited about. Excited enough that I've pre-ordered, and when do I ever pre-order a book? So Sweet Pea is a cross between Bridget Jones and American Psycho. We follow Rhiannon, who is a seemingly normal, average woman. She's got a little flat, she lives with a boyfriend, they've got a little dog, she's a journalist, she hates the people she works with, all the kind of like normal life stuff, but she also happens to be a serial killer. And this is one of those books you can't help but like her and laugh at what she's, you know, some of the things she comes out with, and each chapter starts with a short kill list, which can be anything from you know, somebody that cut her up on the road, or the shop assistant that squashed her bread, all that kind of thing. And it's really relatable irritations, but then obviously she takes it a step further, so you kind of, you're on board with her up to a point, and then she does something and you think, okay, that was too far. But yeah, I've, like I said, just finished reading In Bloom, which is the second book, and that one's a lot more emotional than this one. And yeah, I wound up feeling weirdly connected to a serial killer, but we're not going to examine that too closely. Question 4, Exile, your favourite dark, hard-hitting contemporary. So I also struggled with this prompt because I don't read a lot of contemporary books. I read a lot of dark books, but I don't read a lot of dark contemporary books. However, the only book that really sprang to mind is a contemporary book that isn't dark, but it has some like hard-hitting themes, and that's Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. I absolutely loved this book when I read it last month, and it's about, basically it's about 3 teenagers who find out that they are all adopted and they're all related to each other, and it's all of their different stories and the different traumas that they've had all coming together, and them looking for their birth mum. And it's just so beautifully done, and it made me cry. And this was the only one I could think of when I was looking back through my books, because it's not dark, but it is hard-hitting, and I would very much recommend it. And it's another one with a really nice cover. Okay, next question. My tears ricochet, a character death that destroyed you. I can't go too much into this because of spoilers, but all I'm going to say is Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. There is a death in this. There's lots of death in the Hunger Games series, but there is a death in this that still makes me sob, even though I've read the series probably 4 or 5 times at this point. And if you've read this series and want to take a guess at whose death it was that completely wrecked me as a human, feel free to take a guess. But yeah, it's a death in this that even now it like slightly makes my throat tighten when I think about it. Yeah. Next question. Mirrorball, a character that undergoes major character development. So I've gone for The Places I've Cried in Public by Holly Bourne. This follows a teenage girl who has just been broken up with by her boyfriend. She's in bits, and she decides to in order to try and work out what happened, she's going to go back to all the places that she cried throughout their relationship to kind of piece it together. And I feel like the character in this, what is her name? Amelie, that's it, goes on a massive journey. Because at the start she kind of wants to get back with him. What is he called? Reese. And you know, she's like desperate to have a text message from him or just to see him at college, and then gradually things unravel and you realise exactly what's been going on between these two and why she's been crying so much. And by the end she's in a very different place. And yeah, it's tough reading. There are lots of content warnings for this, so please check those out before you pick it up. But as usual, I feel like Holly Bourne deals with big heavy topics in a really good way. And yeah, the character in this definitely is very different at the end from where she was at the start. Also, this has got sprayed edges. And again, I'm going to say it. It's so pretty. Right, next question. 7, your favourite childhood book. This is always the book that I pull out for this, but it's The Borrowers by Mary Norton. This is one of the first books I ever remember reading. I had a big bind up with it was dark blue and it had the first 3 Borrowers books in it, and if I ever find that edition again I'm going to definitely buy it because the nostalgia would be so high. But I do also like this copy. This is basically about tiny people called borrowers that live under the floor and in the walls, and the adventures that they go on. And as a kid, it absolutely fired up my imagination. It's one of the first books that made me want to write stories. I remember writing loads of borrower stories when I was a kid, and it just really caught my imagination. And I remember it being one of the first chapter books that I read on my own, and it's just a fantastic story. So yeah, definitely The Borrowers by Mary Norton has a big place in my heart. Next question, August, your favourite summertime read. Right, as I've said before in other videos, I don't really read specific books. I'm not a seasonal reader. I would probably save a book set in the snow for the winter, and I don't really read Christmas books, but if I was to read a Christmas book it would be in December. Other than that, I don't really read seasonally, so I didn't really know what to pick for this. I don't read traditionally summary books. So what I've done is I looked back through the books that I read in June, July, August, and I've picked my favourite read of those 3 months, which was very hard to do, but I've gone with The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This book, I really need to do an individual review for this at some point. This is definitely on my like top 10 books of all time. I absolutely adored it. It was a reread when I read it this summer. I read it when it first came out, which was probably about 15 years ago. And when I reread it this summer, I literally could not get it into my brain fast enough. It was one of those books I couldn't put it down. It was one of those. So this is it historic? I guess it would count as historical fiction. Parts of it are historical fiction. So we've got 2 timelines running. In the present day, we've got a young woman who works in an antique bookshop with her dad. She's kind of grown up her whole life surrounded by antique books. Oh, there's the gift note falling out. She's grown up her whole life surrounded by antique books and reading, and she has this deep love of literature. Can you see why I love it? And she then gets a letter from a very reclusive author, but very, very famous author, who's saying that she is ready to tell her life story. That author has given her life story to several different journalists, but every single time it's been different. She's known for lying and holding things back, so our protagonist is very like wary of what's going to happen. But she goes to the huge house where this reclusive author lives, and after a bit of back and forth, she starts to take down the author's biography. And we then go back in time as the author is telling her story, and we follow her from birth up to present day. And it's all the secrets and lies that have made up her life. The title of the novel, 13th Tale, is actually taken from a short story collection that the author in the book wrote that only had 12 stories, and the mystery has always been what was the 13th tale. And there's a lot in this book. It's a book within a book. It's a book about reading, and it's a book about the love of literature. If you are a book lover, you need to read this one. Absolutely flew through it. It is quite big. How big are you? Hang on. Yeah, 450 pages. You know, it's fairly big, but I absolutely flew through it. It's stunning, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough. And again, I love this edition. There's a few editions that have got like slightly dodgy, like 2000s covers, but this one is very pretty, and I love it. And now I want to reread it. I don't have time to reread this book before the end of the year, but I will be reading it again soon. Okay, next question. This is me trying a book that always pulls you out of a slump. I don't have one particular book for this, but it was just kind of a genre. I've just written down children's classics. If I'm feeling slumpy, then reading something easy for my brain and, you know, pretty and with illustrations and stuff always helps. So I've got quite a few. You can see some of them here, and there's some more up here. But this little gap is where I pulled out The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I love these editions and these editions. I do collect them in hardback. And there is just something very soothing about a children's classic. Like, it's not particularly demanding. Yes, you know, the odd traumatic thing might happen, but it's not quite as bad as reading adult fiction. And yeah, there's just something very soothing about curling up with one of these beautiful little books and having a little read. And that is usually how I can get myself out of a slump. Next, Illicit Affairs, Your Guilty Pleasure Read. Right, I totally get why this prompt is with this song title, but can we get the phrase guilty pleasure? Can we just get that and just put it in the bin? Because I hate it. I don't have any guilty pleasures. I've said this before in other videos, I think several times now. People should just be able to enjoy what they enjoy, as long as it's not illegal and as long as nobody's getting hurt. People should just enjoy what they enjoy. So I refuse to answer this question because I don't have any guilty pleasure reads. I just have books that I love. That's the end of the lecture. Okay, next, Invisible String, Your Book Partner. Now, this was I'm probably supposed to pick a book that's my book partner, but I couldn't really, like, the only one that sprang to mind was Handmaid's Tale, but I've talked about that 5,000 times. You guys are probably sick of it. So I've picked a person instead, and I've picked Charlotte from Books and Bargains. I've got several, like, Booktube besties and friends and things that have come out of Booktube, which is amazing. But Charlotte is definitely my person. We talk every day, generally all day, every day. And we also buddy read every month. So in terms of books, she's definitely my book partner, and she's fab. So yeah, I talk about her in most videos, so you're probably already subscribed, but I will link her in the description so you can go and check her out if you haven't already. Next question, Mad Woman, your favourite strong female protagonist. So for this one, I have gone with Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbett. Again, I think that's my Amazon thing coming out. I love this book. I did not expect to like it. It's not really my thing because it's a contemporary romance, but I just had such a good time reading it. And Chloe Brown, who is our protagonist, is definitely a strong female protagonist. But what I really like about her is she's very vulnerable throughout this book. She lives with fibromyalgia. I really hope I said that correctly. So she has chronic pain, and she has to kind of navigate life with a body that doesn't always do what she wants it to do. And what I really, to me, a strong female protagonist is not someone who is always like at the front, totally fine, completely fierce, doesn't have any insecurities or anything like that. I personally think strength comes from the bits where we are damaged, or you know, from the scars that we carry. And I think that Chloe Brown shows that really well. I also just think it's such a lovely book. I'm very excited to read the rest of the Brown Sister series. But yeah, when I saw this question, Chloe Brown was the first character to come up, so that is the book I have chosen. Next book, Epiphany, a character that has overcome a lot. I'm going to go with the book I've just finished reading, which is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. So this follows a black British woman living in London. Her boyfriend has just told her that he wants a break from their relationship, and it's about the fallout from that and how she deals with it. And she goes through a lot in this book. It's a book that deals really well with mental health, with self-worth. There is also some really cleverly done discussions around racism and microaggressions, and she's a character that I found quite frustrating at the start of the book because she was making some really horrible decisions, and we don't get a lot of information at the start of the book as to why she's making that. We don't get a lot of her background story until later in the book, but by the end I was absolutely cheering for her, on her side. And yeah, she definitely has to overcome a lot, but by the end, like I said, I was completely cheering for her, and she definitely sprang to mind when I saw this prompt. And again, this cover, I've seen this cover in loads of different colours, and there's a gold edition that I think looks just beautiful, but I really like this bright pink, and I feel like it suits Queenie's personality really well. So yeah, beautiful. We're almost there. Let's see, Betty, a character that deserved better. There could be so many books I picked for this, but I've gone for Peter Pan, and the character that I've gone for is Wendy, because Wendy deserves so much better than she gets. I do love this glorious edition. Again, this is one of the illustrated interactive editions, illustrated by Mina Lima, in case anybody's interested. It's gorgeous. Wendy deserves so much better. I'm not a big fan of Peter Pan as a book. There are a lot of problems with it, and one of those many problems is the sexism in this book. And I know it was written in the early 1900s, but Wendy deserves far better than she gets. Peace, your favourite fictional couple, bonus points if they went through a lot together. So for this one, I'm just checking the character names because I'm horrendous for remembering. I'm going for Lee and Ren from Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nagan. I read this earlier this year. I loved it. I'm scared to read the next book because I love their relationship. It's very slow burn, and I'm really scared that if I read the next book, something bad is going to happen to one or both of them, or they're going to split up and then my heart will be broken. And that's genuinely why I haven't picked up the next book yet, because I'm kind of scared. This is a fantasy book, so a YA fantasy, so really not usually in my wheelhouse, but I really enjoyed this. This is set in a world where there are 3 castes. There's demons, full demons at the top, then there are half demon, half humans the next tier down, and then at the bottom are full humans, which are known as the paper caste. Every year the Demon King chooses some girls. How many? I think there's 8. Yes, usually, traditionally every year he chooses 8 paper girls to be his concubines, and then this year a 9th girl is chosen, and we follow that girl as she goes into the palace, and she meets another girl and they form a relationship, and it's about how they are taking down society basically, but along the way there's this like beautiful romance that unfolds between them, and I love their relationship so much, and like I said, I'm kind of scared to read the next one in case something bad happens, but yeah, that's my pick for that. And then the final question, hoax, a fictional breakup that destroyed you. I actually don't have an answer for this because, like I said, I don't really read much romance, or even just books with relationships in. So I do, however, love a good crying over a book. So if you've got a book that had a breakup in it that you thought was really emotional, then recommend me below and I will check some of them out. So those are all the questions. I'm going to tag 3 people. I'm going to tag Emma from Drinking by My Shelf because she is a huge Swiftie, and I'm amazed that she hasn't done this tag yet. It might be that she's not aware, but Emma, I'm tagging you. Secondly, I'm going to tag Charlotte from Books and Bargains because I think she'd have fun with this. And then thirdly, I'm going to tag Brianna from Coffee Books and Bullet Journals because I think she can have some really cool answers to these questions. So if you've watched this far, please drop me a comment. Let me know if you are a Swiftie. If you are, which is your favourite album? I personally think Red is her best work so far. And also drop me a comment and recommend me some books with breakups that broke your heart. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks guys. Bye.